If you're into paper crafting, you've got two hobbies. One is creating, the second is collecting. So that's where I landed today. I have loads of new embossing folders that I couldn't wait to use, and I didn't know what to do. So I did the next best thing, mix and match. Let's get crafting. I was so excited to get this new Altenew book cover engravings 3D embossing folder and this dynamite Spellbinders embossing folder called Dazzling Dots. So let's use them together. I'm going to be using 65-pound weight Recollections cardstock, which is pretty thin when it comes to using 3D embossing folders. So how do you keep it from cracking? Let me show you. Now I'm going to layer up my cardstock. Just like my trick with vellum, I'm going to do it with cardstock. And I chose white, but it could be any color. Could be two pieces of the same color. It doesn't really matter. So when you get a new embossing folder, you need to test it out. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I knew that cardstock was going to crack, so that's why I doubled it up. And I'm just testing this at this point. I want to get as much of that 3D embossed image onto my 4¼ by 5½ inch panel. I'm using a Spellbinders Platinum 6, and I have my A platform, my cardstock and embossing folder, and then I'm layering up the D adapter plate. And I quickly realized that it's not enough pressure to even get a decent impression. So I'm going to use my metal shim, and I'm just placing that underneath my embossing folder, and then I'm going to go ahead and run it through. Now I have enough pressure, and I feel like I'm going to get a great impression. And here's the big reveal. It's simply stunning. And because I layered up that second piece of cardstock, I get a twofer. How awesome is that? Neither piece cracked. Amazing. And such a simple technique to ensure no cracking when you're using 3D embossing folders. Now let's try it with both embossing folders. This time I'm going to use blue cardstock, and I've spritzed both sides. And there's my white. And I'm going to go ahead and spritz that off camera because I realized I got my Spellbinders Platinum 6 wet. I'm just going to go ahead and line that up the best I can. Except this time, I'm not going to emboss the entire piece of cardstock. I want to get that big bloom and much of that flourish on the right-hand side lined up across the top of my piece of cardstock. Now I'm going to use the exact same sandwich because I really haven't changed anything except for the orientation of the paper within the embossing folder. And this time I'm going to line up my adapter plate so it just is to the inside of the edge of my embossing plate. I want to kind of keep any harsh lines from ending up on the cardstock. Now you and I are both seeing this technique for the very first time. It's the first time I'm trying it, and I couldn't be happier. It's gorgeous. Now I want to do a little mixing and matching. Don't worry about that water spot, it'll dry. And I'm going to pull out the Spellbinders Dazzling Dots. Now this one's not three-dimensional, but that's okay. It still works out beautifully. Now, I really thought that the mixture of the geometric pattern with the florals was going to be stunning. And here I am lining up the pattern of the Dazzling Dots folder with the cardstock. Now, because this is geometric, I'm taking specific care to make sure that everything lines up pattern-wise. Now you might be wondering whether or not I went ahead and added more moisture to my cardstock, and I did not. I figured that the water that I had already added was sufficient. Let's see if my gamble pays off, shall we? I'm flipping this back around because it's just how my brain works. And once again, I'm using the same sandwich, and I am putting that adapter plate just to the right so it's not directly over the edge. Once again, it's only going to emboss where that cover plate is over. So it's not going to get that harsh line. Now remember, this one's not a 3D, so I kind of ran it through a couple of times just to get a deeper impression. Okay, so I've gotten my machine out of the way, and let's check it out. Oh, it's gorgeous? And once again, I got 2 cards for 1 technique. Can't get much better than that. Now I could have left well enough alone, but my dazzling dots was a little off, so it was a little cockeyed. So I'm going to fix that by using my scoreboard. Now this is a We Are Memory Keepers scoreboard, and I've flipped my image over. So this is the back of my image, and I'm using a ball stylus that I use to shape flowers, and I'm just choosing an area that's closest to the edge, and I'm going to go ahead and score that both times, the top and the bottom, and give it a good score. That presses that cardstock in the same direction. Now you see that I've given myself some lines. Now right there I can see a couple of the dots, but that's okay because I want to fix that up too. You're never going to see it. I'm going to use the ball. I tried using the silicone end. It wasn't strong enough. Yep, didn't work. So I'm just going to use the ball stylus and just rub that paper flat again. It was only a couple of dots. No one's ever going to be the wiser. Fixed. Now that flat space between the 2 embossed images is perfect for a sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up. Now this particular stamping platform is no longer manufactured, but most people here in the US use a MISTI. I just don't happen to own one. But this one works perfectly fine for what I need. And this happens to be a Simon Says stamp birthday greeting. It just says happy birthday, and it's script. I thought it matched nicely the essence of the card. It was very delicate and sweet. Now for this one, I'm using Versamark. Versamark is a clear, sticky embossing ink, and I'm giving it 2 coats and not pressing very hard because I don't want to squish the letters. But I'm going to finish this off with Ranger's Silver Superfine Embossing Powder. Now, you see the embossing bag sitting off there to the right? I forgot to use that thing. So here I am scraping little bits of embossing powder off. So it is the one thing I almost always forget. I don't know. How about you? Do you remember the embossing bag or embossing powder? It seems to be my Achilles heel. I did remember to preheat my embossing tool, and I'm going to go ahead and melt that embossing powder. So satisfying. Stretching your supplies and your craft budget is super important to me. So I developed some flashcards. Now, this is called 20 Sensational Embossing Folder Techniques, and it gives you full color illustrations and directions on how to achieve 20 different techniques using your embossing folders. Super easy to follow, and a color picture to illustrate that specific technique. Today's cards all come from using the white pigment technique, except for we're going to change it up just a little bit. So these are flashcards. You can laminate them and cut them apart. You can print them on cardstock and not laminate them. It's up to you. You can put them in a page protector like I've done, but we're going to use this white pigment technique or a variation of it. And my directions simply say to emboss a piece of colored cardstock. We did that. And swipe white pigment ink over the raised portion of the embossed image, which we're about to do. But we're not going to use white pigment ink. We're going to use something a little different and step it up a notch. Let's get back to the card. Today I'm going to be using a different pigment ink. This one is called Brilliance, and the color is called Platinum Planet. Now, all of my supplies that I can still find that are available, I will list in the description box below, along with that embossing folder PDF if you're interested. Now, the white pigment ink, or in this case, silver pigment ink, we're just going to very gently swipe over the raised area of the flowers. I just want to bring that floral, because it is glorious, that floral image to the forefront. And I wanted to kind of match the silver embossing powder that I used for the happy birthday sentiment. Any place that I want more, I just go in with a little heavier hand Any place that I just want the edges, I just go over very gingerly. No rhyme or reason here other than personal preference. Now this one is stunning, but we need options. Let's check out some other things that we can do to finish off these cards. For the white card, I've stamped my happy birthday sentiment with Ranger Superfine Gold embossing powder, and I'm going to finish my flowers with foundry wax. Now this one is gilded, which is a gold color, and if you've never worked with foundry wax, it's really cool stuff. It's a liquid. Now you had to shake it up pretty well, and you put it down on a craft sheet, and I'm just using my finger here to go over the embossed image. But as it dries, it turns into a wax-like finish. And I'm just going to heat set it at the very end to shine it up, because it kind of stays dull until you hit it with heat. But this stuff is really cool, and I think it comes in 4 colors, and that's all that it will ever come in. But white and gold is very elegant. This would be fantastic as, like, I think 50th wedding anniversary or even a wedding card. Pretty, very pretty. Once I got started down this path, I couldn't stop, not gonna lie. So this one is another new to me folder. This one's called Farmhouse Florals, and oh, I love this image. Now I'm going to use the same technique that I did before, but we're going to finish them completely different. Now this is a bright blue, and since I used another Altenew folder already, I know my sandwich. Now I'm trying to decide just how I want this to go through my machine, and it's gorgeous. I did the exact same thing. There's white card underneath this, so I'm going to get a 2 card in 1 pass type of deal. I couldn't help but think of bees with my Farmhouse Florals. So this is Honeycomb Frenzy. And you see my post-it note tells me my sandwich that I need for my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. So this is a Sizzix 3D embossing folder, and they tend to be pretty thick in comparison to some of the others. So I'm just figuring out, once again, where do I want to line this up, and then I'm going to go ahead and run it through the machine. All right, and the magic of photo editing. I finished that up and you can't see it. My apologies, guys, but you'll see that you get the twofer, and I did a white one and a blue one. So let's finish these off. Now I've decided to go ahead and add lines again with my scoreboard, and remember to flip it over if you want your pattern, you want your score lines to go the same direction as your embossed image. So here I'm just putting my line down with my ball stylus, and I decided to put a double line just along the bottom, a little something different. Oops, let's turn that one over. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here with the blue one. First one, I give it two or three passes, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the next line over. Just a slightly different texture. So what if you don't have pigment ink? Well, you can use distress oxides if you have those, because the beauty of oxides is that they will maintain their color even on dark cardstock. And this one is mustard seed. Now, this is an unusual color combination. You may really like it, you may not. But this is probably my least favorite of all of them, just because of the color blue cardstock that I used, not because of the yellow ink. But distress oxides will color over your base color. If you have distress inks, which are a dye ink, those are more transparent. You're not going to get very good coverage on a dark cardstock with a distress ink. It would need to be a distress oxide for the dark one to work. But you could certainly do it on the white one if you have distress inks. So it's different. It grows on me. That's all I can say. It's how you finish this card that's going to make all the difference in the world. Now, let's switch over to the white one. And once again, I'm using distress oxides. This one's Salvage Patina, but you could use any ink on the white cardstock for sure. Any dye ink, any pigment ink, any hybrid ink. I just happen to have all the Distress Oxide, so that's what I lean towards. I do have a few Distress Inks, which are their dye-based line, but my go-to is definitely Distress Oxide. And this is just gorgeous. I love the white and blue here. Here's our finished platinum card, finished with some rhinestones. Our white and gold card, finished with pearls and gilded foundry wax. Our blue card is finished with Mustard Seed Distress Oxide, pearls, a white sentiment, and a bee. I die cut and colored a Birthday Witch's sentiment in the same salvage patina and placed it on a holographic circle with some rhinestones. Did you like our partial embossing folder technique today? Here's some other videos that I think you'll enjoy just as much. Until next time, I'll see you real soon.